So, welcome to our very first episode of Cooperative Collaboration, a podcast where we'll aim to bridge the gap between healthcare professionals and patients, providing valuable insights, discussing common challenges, and exploring innovative solutions. So, get ready for candid conversations, expert interviews, and practical advice that empowers patients to take control of their health while fostering stronger relationships with their healthcare providers. Let's break down barriers and build a healthcare system that truly reflects honesty and transparency. Today, on our very first episode, I'm so excited. We are joined by Madeleine Welton, who is a brain injury survivor and author. And we're so excited to have her on this first episode, as every year on December 2nd is National Women's Brain Health Day. So we're going to talk about the importance of brain health and what that means. So welcome, Madeleine.
Thank you very much, Courtney.
I would love to jump right in and talk about your story a little bit and how it relates to women's brain health and why we got you to join us here today.
Well, I was very excited to come because the fellow who taught me this procedure, Dr. John Thornton, I didn't meet him for a long time, and I struggled through the different alleyways of brain injury recovery. But nobody could ever tell me how to get better. And I kept asking and asking, and doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, therapists, nobody had the answer. And then I was at a workshop with, it was on traumatic brain injury and hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which actually it doesn't work for severe traumatic brain injury. But one of the other guest there was a psychiatrist named Dr. John Thornton, who asked me if I had ever heard of SPECT scans. And I said no. And so he briefly described the procedure and said, if you want to know more, make an appointment, and here's my card, and come to my office, and I can tell you everything you need to know. So I waited, and I thought, I'm not getting any better. I've exhausted all my avenues. Maybe I should give Dr. Thornton a call. And I picked up the phone one day, and I called him and left a message, and he returned my call the next week. And apparently I was the only one at the conference who actually called him, and he handed out 5 to 10 business cards there. And he taught me how to get better from brain injury. To get my whole brain working again, and that was the...
Wow. And how long had it have been since your injury to this point?
It was 18 years.
Wow.
So this can be done immediately after your injury, 10 years, 20 years, even 50 years post-injury. It'll work. It opens up the blood flow in your brain to reach all areas of your brain. And it doesn't just treat your cold spots, which are the underperfused areas, by sending more oxygen. It also treats the hot spots, which are overworked areas of your brain, so that your brain becomes balanced and everything's working in cooperation with each other.
Perfect. That actually leads me, you bring up this idea of balance, and I've seen this notion of a balanced brain. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what is a balanced brain and how would one achieve that?
Well, a balanced brain would be achieved through this SPECT scan procedure that Dr. Thornton does, where you, after several weeks of psychotherapy, learning about your personal situation and how you have been affected, he sends you for a SPECT scan, which measures the blood flow in your brain, and then he receives the interpretation, but the interpretation has to be made readable for a psychiatrist, not just a nuclear physicist or nuclear doctor. So he prefers the interpretation to be done in a three-dimensional color scheme process, which he could not find anyone in Canada to do for the longest time. He did it for me, and then the hospitals didn't want to fund this particular procedure anymore. They wanted to put the money into other programs. And so he eventually realized that he could go to the States and have it read by radiologists down there and send this procedure, send the scans reinterpreted back to him where he could read them from a psychiatric point of view.
Wow. And we know that brain health is so important. It improves memory, it increases our levels of creativity, it improves problem solving, it allows for clearer thinking, along with self-awareness and emotional regulation. So did you find that this is something you had struggled with previously? Do you find exercise is so important for our health, but exercise is also important for our brain, physical activity, but also doing puzzles, learning new skills, teaching new skills. Are these things that you found have helped you throughout your journey?
Well, I always did those activities from day one, because the occupational therapists encourage you to do such activities.
Yeah.
But I didn't really reach a level of complete ability or comprehension in any of it until I saw him. And then, see, after he does one SPECT scan and treats it, you're sent for a second SPECT scan where he compares the two and he sees if he's been successful. Yeah. If not, he tries different medication, and that's his treatment through off-label medication. And he'll send you for a second SPECT scan, which he can see if it's working or not. And if it works, great, then you can start relearning things. For me, the best thing with the medication was that it brought immediate emotional control. The medications he diagnosed me with or prescribed for me were the correct ones the first time around. So my emotional control was reestablished. I no longer was, freaking out all the time. It was just wonderful.
And would you say that was your biggest struggle from your brain injury? Was the emotional control?
The emotional control was just horrendous. Yeah. But actually, what my situation was, I was working with 50% of my brain.
Wow. And
you can't, even with neuroplasticity, you're shoving all this new information into working parts of your brain. But if it's only 50%, it'll be a struggle to retrieve some of that newly learned information.
Absolutely.
As well as that newly learned information isn't going in very well.
Yeah.
So it was really exciting. And then I still have physical deficits, but they, a lot of them were not because of the brain injury itself. And one was, and we can't figure out what's wrong.
Yeah. So over that journey of that 18 years of really struggling to find a right medical path, did you find that as you met different healthcare providers that there was this idea of cooperative collaboration? Did they work well with you? Did they work well with one another within the healthcare system?
Good question. That was the biggest frustration for me, was that one person was not talking to the other person. Left hand was not talking to the right hand. And so you figure, I think I need chiropractic. My neck is killing me. Well, the chiropractor didn't talk to the physiotherapist who you're going to learn how to walk better. Yeah. And, and then your cognitive and your emotional, that's just like, I had no one.
Wow. And
because once the insurance company lets you out, which they say after 2 or 3 years, you're healthy. Mm-hmm. That's all they're giving you. Then your support's all cut off, and you have to figure out what you need and who you need it from.
Yeah.
All by yourself.
As a brain injury survivor, how difficult is that to advocate for yourself?
Can you imagine if only half your brain is working? How does a brain injury person navigate the system on their own and figure out what they need and who they can get it from?
Did you also find that going to all of these different healthcare providers, were you able to articulate to each one your need, or was it sometimes difficult as you visited that you might have a different issue given a certain day, so when you go and see them you're not able to capture necessarily the entire picture?
That's brilliant. That's a great question. But it's also, you don't know, you might be progressing in one area with one therapist, but the other therapist just, it doesn't interest them.
Right. Yeah, so that makes it really difficult when you're not getting this holistic type care where folks are looking at your entire picture and speaking to one another to say, hey, Madeleine is doing this work and it's going really well. Maybe if we integrated this, it might help. It's an unfortunate hole, I think, in our current healthcare system, and
it's a huge hole.
An important piece of this podcast, I think, is going to be talking to healthcare providers and exploring that further and how they can work better with their colleagues, and how that would then obviously help their patients as well. I think that cooperative collaboration within our healthcare system is really missing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think I wrote in my book, I said, so one option is to have family doctors have a checklist or something that's universal, so they can send you to this therapy or that therapy if you're questioning it, to get assessed at least.
Yeah.
But I was met with, well, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah,
it's like
that's not helpful. when the people who are supposed to know say, oh well, I'm not sure, that is a dead end, and then where do you go from there?
And where do you go when you're brain injured? So how can you figure it out for yourself?
Yeah. Besides the SPECT scan, what resources did you find to be helpful in this time since your injury? Are there organizations or classes or just things you like to do on your own that have helped you?
Yes. I will say that brain injury associations are great sources of all types of knowledge, whether you need legal help, and we all need legal help because the healthcare system is designed to require legal help.
Yeah.
And physically, I went to the gym almost every day because I thought that would get more oxygen to my brain. Yeah. That would help me function better. Well, the oxygen wasn't able to pass through the brain membranes into all the areas of my brain, but I tried. I was pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things like Nordic walking alone, I didn't try that till long after I should have. And it certainly helps your ability to walk.
And what is Nordic walking?
With the poles that you see older people with for stability, it really enhances your gait if you have walking disability. Mm-hmm. And yes.
And you mentioned your book, so you obviously enjoy writing, I would assume, if you did this. But what inspired you to share your story and your experiences in this way? We have a copy here we can show.
Oh. Okay, I wrote that book because first Dr. Thorne wanted me to get the information out there, and for myself, I wanted to get it out there to help prevent anyone else from going through what I had to go through for 18 years. Mm-hmm. I know there's still people out there with the effects of brain injury from 20, 40 years ago. And this procedure can restore your brain function. It's just wonderful.
Wow. And what do you hope this book will do for others?
I hope that this book becomes the norm. The information in there, and SPECT scans with 3-day interpretations becomes the norm for doctors to treat their patients, so that nobody else has to go through 20 or more years, or even 5 years of brain injured agony.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing your story with us of how you obtained your brain injury?
Okay.
Only if you're comfortable.
No, I say it quite a lot. way back in 1993, I was driving my 2 babies who were under 2 years of age to the health club for babysitting. And I had to get there before a certain time to when my children were allowed into the babysitting, because the babysitting was only half day at that time. So it was 10-15 minute drive, and we were on the North Service Road, about a mile and a half, no, 800 meters from the club, and a car came off the QEW through the chain link fence and landed on my car. And I was out like a light. I was unconscious for almost a month, and my 2 babies in the back seat were fine. And I'd like to plug Fisher Price car seats, because they saved their lives.
Wow, that's amazing. And really what I wanted to highlight through that is a brain injury can happen to anyone at any time. It's not something that you're expecting.
No.
So being aware of these things and the resources out there, it can happen to anyone. And so knowing then how to navigate potentially the care afterwards, or someone you may know and you can help direct them, I think is really important. So knowing about the fact that we have these brain injury associations throughout Canada, your local city probably has one if you want to look into it. They are always looking for volunteers, or I know they have various charity events where they could really use help. And I think that knowing about these things also then helps us work together in cooperative collaboration with our communities and with our loved ones and folks that may need help.
We need to have all the medical professionals who are involved in brain injury communicating with each other. The only place this is really well done is in the American Air Force.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, great. But you have to be a member of the American Air Force to obtain these therapies.
Yeah.
So it's really the Canadian Brain Injury Association, which is called Brain Injury Canada now, BIC, they have a website which provides a lot of information that you need, and it covers all areas of it. Like, it's a well-rounded website. So I would highly recommend that, as well as the Avaya website.
We can absolutely link those so folks know where to find them easily.
Yeah.
And but prior to obtaining your brain injury, did you ever consider your brain health? Was this something you thought about, or was this something that really came about afterwards?
Oh, I never specifically identified my brain as needing health, other than just maintain a good exercise regime.
Yep.
And I always ate healthy, and so I knew eating, exercise are probably the most important things to brain health.
Yeah.
And
and
supplementation.
Yes.
Omega-3s,
yes.
vitamin D, and magnesium are key
for our brain health. And with it being National Women's Brain Health Day, we really want to push that importance of having a healthy brain, having a balanced brain, utilizing your whole brain, and really diving into ensuring that we're caring for ourselves, our whole selves, especially our brain, since that's what is our control center for everything. And I'm sure since your accident that you really have felt how, when that's out of balance, how it affects the whole system.
Oh, well, I've always worried about my weight, and until I was healed and things were all working properly, all of a sudden I was able to, maintain my ideal weight. I never worried about my weight anymore, and that was just like, I thought that was really curious.
Yeah.
That it was related, but it's because you need your whole body working in unison.
Absolutely. And what would your loved ones say about how you are now versus...
Do you know, we went on a vacation. I think I'll put this example in my book.
Okay.
And we were going away on a vacation, and we packed the car, and my husband always does the checklist. He says, boots, skis, ski jackets, ski pants, hats, mitts, socks. And my oldest son said, does mommy have her medication?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, that means it really is successful.
Yeah, for your kids to notice, hey, this is something that mom needs to be functioning at her best.
Well, it keeps her from erupting.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like a volcano.
And in what way would you say that you're like a volcano? Is that something that...
My emotional control. If I got upset, I would just say, excuse me, darling, could you please? I say, ah!
Wow.
What do you I screamed a lot. I was terrible. I can't believe they're such wonderful people.
Wow. And have you known any other folks who have been able to reach the same level of success with a brain injury that as you have so far?
Mm-hmm.
Do you connect with other folks who have had brain injuries?
I used to be participating in the brain injury associations, and actually I went to a brain injury conference just a few weeks ago in Ontario, Obaya, in Niagara Falls, and I actually met a few of the other women there and took them to the seminar presented by Dr. Thornton, and then gave them copies of my book.
Oh, that's
after
fantastic.
the seminar. Yeah.
So now you're an advocate in guiding others to help navigate the system that was so difficult
they were
for
so
you.
they were so excited. They
Yeah.
were so excited that there was an answer,
and it's fantastic that you can be that link, even though I'm sure that's not what you were expecting to come out of all of this, but that now you can help bring that community together.
Well, originally I thought if I can just help one other person to avoid everything I had to endure, I'll be successful. But now I just want as many people as possible to be able to recover quickly.
That's amazing. That is such a beautiful message, and it's very, very kind and generous of you to have received this help and seen how well it works to then want to gift that to others.
Well, the whole system of care that was provided to me was so kind and generous, and all the therapists were so wonderful, and then I met this wonderful psychiatrist. Mind you, there was a gap in there of 15 years of agony, but when I was in touch with the people in the brain injury community, they were so wonderful that I thought, well, what can I do to help?
That's amazing. And what do you think the difference was between those care providers and the ones you had seen previously that made you feel they were so kind?
Oh, the ones I saw previously were wonderfully kind too. But there was a gap, when the insurance company cut me off to when I met Dr. Thornton.
Right.
And, but I used a lot of personal trainers at the gym because I I needed help just pedaling a bike to start with. It was awful.
Yeah, and so when the insurance stopped, then you were no longer able to obtain those services.
I went to the gym and I was like, I don't know what to do now. I'll try this, but I couldn't focus on anything long enough because that was characteristic of brain injury, lack of focus.
Yeah.
And so I just jumped from one exercise to another, and then the personal training director suggested I try personal training. And I said, oh, okay, I'll think about it. And a week or two later, I signed up.
Yeah, and it
thankfully.
Yeah.
And that kept me on the straight and narrow for a while. But I still wasn't able to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, that I had done previously.
What would be an example of that, of something that you wanted to do but just could not?
The biggest thing, and I still can't do it, was helicopter skiing.
Oh, wow. I don't think that most of us without brain injuries can do that.
My husband and my sons are great skiers.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. But prior to my brain injury, I wanted to go on a helicopter ski
Wow.
trip with my husband.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh no, dear, you've got years to do that." Well, then this happened.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, I'll never be able to do that. I'm okay with it though, because then they've told me about parts of the experience which I might not like.
Yeah. So maybe it worked out that that was a goal that you had that didn't come to fruition. That is okay in the end.
And you know what was really exciting was relearning old things that all of a sudden seemed new again. You know, we had to relearn to ski on the J bar, like the bunny hill. Yeah. I spent 2 years on that hill. Wow. And it wasn't as bad as it seemed, because it was all new and I saw the snow from a different perspective, and it was like, oh wow, it was all very exciting to learn it from a beginner's point of view.
It seems like you had a lot of determination to be well again, and that was a big driving factor, I think, in you finding new ways that maybe folks had never heard of to reach that and to obtain your goals.
Do you want me to show you a picture of my husband and sons? Yeah. They are amazing. And I was like, I cannot go through life like this. I have to improve. I have to get better for them.
Yeah, that's amazing that you're able to use the folks that you love so much to be motivators for you. What would you say to folks that maybe don't have a family of their own, to where they could find their motivation?
Well, I'm not quite sure. Think it's your opportunity to put your best self out there to have the best life you can have.
I think that is an incredible message of just wanting to do it for yourself and ensuring that you're living life to the fullest and your best life. I think that's a perfect message of your best life. I think that's what we all want. Yeah, I agree, regardless of having a brain injury or not.
And your best life will help everybody else around you that you encounter and share your life with.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing. Yeah. I love that, Madeleine. So if folks want to get a copy of your book, which is titled How I Got Better from a Traumatic Brain Injury, where would they be able to do that?
You can do it off Amazon, which has good delivery fees relative to other issues. Yeah. I have a website, www.Madeleine Welton, MadeleineWelton.com, and that gives you the options for where you can buy the book. And if you buy it from Indigo or Chapters, you just order it and then you can pick it up for free.
Oh wow!
So there's no delivery charge.
So you can find it almost anywhere that sells books that folks are going to these days.
And the ebook is only $4.99.
Oh, I think that's a great deal for some of the tidbits that you've given us so far. I think folks will really love diving into your story, your experience, whether they've had a brain injury or not. Just you're such an inspirational person that I think reading your story would give anyone the courage to speak up in their own lives, whether it's with healthcare providers or anything else. Fantastic. And as we've said, connect to your local brain injury association. Check out the website of the National Canadian Brain Injury Association, Ontario, if you're in Ontario. There's one in every province, Madeleine has told me. Are the territories as well, or just the provinces?
I don't know.
We'll have to take a peek into that. And
there is one in Nunavut. I met a lady years ago at a Brain Injury Canada conference from Nunavut.
Yeah.
And she was not brain injured. She was there trying to find help for how to help the people that were brain injured that worked for her.
And that brings us back to the work that can be done by folks who don't necessarily have a brain injury. We can be advocates and seek out information or be links between the information, the resources, and folks who do have brain injuries, which is very important to that community.
It is. It's the key, because most people with brain injuries are unable to find their own cure.
Yeah.
Because you cannot use your brain to help fix your brain.
And as we've said, that is the most important piece. When you don't have full access to your brain, I just can't even imagine how difficult it would be to navigate day-to-day life sometimes, let alone searching out these resources. So I really want to thank you for being here and joining us and sharing your very personal story, fantastic resources, your experiences with the healthcare system, and how we can do better in that area. I think that's an important message, and we don't have to say we don't have great healthcare. We have good healthcare, but things can always be improved. And by adding in the cooperative collaboration with patients and healthcare providers, I think that's a way that we move forward.
I think they need a centralized system for the collaborative cooperation to work from.
Right.
That whether it's like a center where they send everything out, or whether you go to one center to get everything. Yeah. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, and I do know there are some of those types of centers starting to come up now, because I think folks are starting to get it that they need to be connected and to communicate, to give their patients the best care possible. And you're obviously a great example of that need for that communication. So I want to thank you again. It was
you're welcome, Courtney.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Happy National Women's Brain Health Day on December 2nd. Do something good for your brain today. Learn something new. Teach someone a skill. Do a puzzle. There are a lot of great things we can do for our brain health. And join us next time as we continue to navigate the complex world of healthcare, where transparency and honesty are at the forefront. And hopefully we can work together for some cooperative collaboration.